Hello, I'm Marc Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have Maz Lopez, the senior channel marketing manager for AMD, in the studio in person in London. How are we doing?
Yeah, really well. Thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here.
Yeah, great. Well, actually, you're one of our podcast partners, and in fact, you are the first person in the new studio.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm really lucky then.
Yeah, you are really
Nice.
lucky.
Yeah,
You
it's
are really
really
lucky.
swish. Very nice.
Yeah, so thanks for coming in, Maz. Maz, when I normally have a guest in the studio, I normally have a bit of a scour through their LinkedIn.
I've noticed.
And pick something out. And I started looking through your LinkedIn profile, and I thought, oh, she studied journalism, PR, media at Westminster. Then I struck gold. I struck gold because you were, during that time,
Yep.
a presenter
Yep.
of, like Alan Partridge style, hospital radio.
Yeah.
How did you get into that?
So it even led on. So I did journalism, and we were really lucky that we had all of these radio suites, TV studios that we could get to work with. But of course, you get told you need to widen your horizons. And next to the Harrow campus at Northwick Park is Northwick Park Hospital. So I just kind of ambled down into their basement and was like, hey, put me on a show.
You just walked in?
Yeah, I was just like, I want to volunteer. It didn't seem like many of my cohort were also doing that. So I was like, I don't know, they're missing a trick or something. I started to volunteer at Northwick Park Hospital Radio. And then I ended up working at Mercury 96.6 in Watford.
Wow.
Because I wanted to be Blue Peter presenter. Actually.
Is that right? Is that right?
That is absolutely right. And I got as far as sending a demo video in, basically, because I got to interview Gethin Jones, who was a Blue Peter presenter when I was at Mercury.
Wow.
And then he said, oh, I'm leaving. Here's the editor's name and the address, send in your demo video. Alas, it wasn't meant to be. But then I kind of found my way through the degree and through some connections I made at Watford into marketing, and that's where things really took off.
You should be interviewing me at this stage. You've got more experience of me doing sort of presenting than me, but have you ever thought of at that stage sort of carrying on when you were at uni thinking, wow, actually, this could be a career long term?
Do you want to hear a deep, dark secret?
Yeah, go on.
I had a podcast myself.
Wow.
Yeah. And I did voiceover for a few years
as well.
Yeah, I freelanced.
Really?
Yeah. I became a bit disillusioned, really, that I think what people imagine media to be is not necessarily what it is. And I actually discovered that the marketing side of things was really making me tick. And then as I kind of approached tech marketing, it got that bit of my brain that likes to know how things work, a bit engineering-y. And then I haven't looked back.
What sort of voiceovers, Maz? Come on, you can't say a comment like that and not give me an idea. What sort of stuff?
Anything from there was it was like a dance chart single that was released. Yeah. And then just local stuff, for the Peace Hospice in Watford and other little local projects. And then a couple of corporate videos and stuff. I don't think now you'd find any proof, she says, of that. But yeah, that's always the fun thing when someone says, you meet someone and everyone goes around the room saying, what was that your fun bit of information? I'm like, I used to be a radio DJ. That's great.
So let's move on.
Flash forward a few years.
Let's move on. So you've done your degree, you've started work. Talk about that first move into tech. How did you get into tech?
I was approached by a headhunter. Actually, I was interviewing for a couple of roles. I was kind of deciding that I was doing a lot of freelance, but I wanted something a bit more secure. And I had the opportunity to go own my own business or go into, the workplace. And the thing that I loved was actually the doing. And I thought, if I'm going to own my own company, I'm going to have to deal with HR and payroll and stuff like that. And I wasn't interested. So a recruiter got in touch with me about this tech role and did I want to interview for it? And the conversation went exactly like the start of this one, which is, wow, your CV is quite varied. What's leading you here? And I went, well, I built my own, I was doing my audio and my video editing and my workstation was just not up to standard. So I bought the components and with my friend and my husband, we built the workstation that I was going to then work off. So did all the research about what CPU and GPU I needed, and we built it.
Wow.
And so that was kind of, then they went, oh, okay, so some bits of, some components. We think you could be a good fit here. It seems like marketing. And that was a job, and that was a channel distri / VAR. So, and then the rest is history. Just loved it.
You said that you built your own sort of computer, etc. Did you have an interest in it, or was it, I actually need to do this?
Both.
Both.
Yeah,
there was an interest.
I always want to know how things work. Like, it's my grandfather worked at, what's now Siemens in the Czech Republic. And apparently, he was always fiddling with things when he was growing up. I'm the DIYer in the house. So it just got that bit of my brain that was like, oh, okay. And so building it, I just really loved putting it together like a Lego, and being like, okay, if if I've got any static on me, I might break this CPU before I put it in, and is it going to work? Does it work? Does everything okay? And then obviously you get a massive sense of satisfaction when you plug it in, it boots up, and you're like, oh my God, I actually did it.
You seem quite entrepreneurial. Did you get a chance to sort of put your own ideas into that role, or was it quite actually do this and do that and do that campaign?
No, massive scope.
Really?
And I think any role that I'm in, I have to be able to kind of tick that slight creative box. I think if I was in a very rigid kind of role, I probably would, I wouldn't get what I need, right? And I think we spend so much of our time working. We should really do something that makes us tick. And if you're lucky enough to have a job that you love and work with people that you love, I think, it all pulls together, really. So, yeah.
Talking of jobs you love,
yeah.
What made you come to AMD as a company, and how did it happen?
That's that is the interview question that we ask everyone, right? What made you apply to AMD? And it was really simple. That the people were brilliant. I was lucky enough to work with loads of industry ecosystem people, whether it was SaaS, whether it was vendors, whether it was channel and customer, and the people at AMD just seem like my kind of people. They seem to have a similar kind of ethos to what I was used to already. That entrepreneurial spirit, everyone's, working together towards a common goal and is approachable. And so I already knew people that were working at AMD. And, I asked the question, is it as good as you think it, as it appears from the outside? Do you like your job? And I think the fact that I've got so many colleagues that have been in the company 10, 15, 20, 30 years, I think that speaks for itself.
I've read recently about some of the product launches you've done and you've led when you've been working with different vendors and launching new products. I'm interested, what is the actual process? What happens when they say, actually, we want to launch this product?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's not just me. There are obviously, before marketing even touches this, there's, years of R&D and, and the actual product designers that work on something. And for me, as a regional marketer, we get brought in as part of the product launch team. So there'll be the team that are actually building the physical Lisa Sue walking on stage part of it. There's going to be the content creators. There's going to be PR that are working on what is that press release going to be that we're putting out. And then from a regional marketing standpoint, we're providing input into the types of assets that our channel partners are going to want to use, working with our regional OEM partners as well to support them, making sure that they're ready for the launch at the same time. So what might seem like a product launch is, years and years in the making. Right. But that's also great because at every launch, you're seeing that journey from the previous one. And, the way it's received is always exciting, because of course, the product launch happens and immediately I think we're all, going onto the internet and looking for the search, the keyword search terms to hear, and on social media to hear how it's been received.
How do you make something interesting? I've got an AMD product here. It's powered by AMD. I've got a tablet in my hand for the people that are listening to the show. How do you make that sort of interesting when they might not even know it's powered by that tech?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, because there are so many products that are powered by AMD that you are, or services like Netflix that you're using in your everyday life that perhaps you're not even aware of. And where I kind of have sat in my career in the data center and the commercial client side of the business, again, you know, people walk around with these devices, or they're, you know, dialing into the servers, and they don't necessarily know what kind of technology it is that it sits on. And I think for us, the important thing is the storytelling element of it. So, of course, you know, if you have a leading technology, that helps, you know, the narrative. But having your partners, OEMs, customers coming on stage and telling their story about how they're using that product and that technology, how it's helping them solve problems, I think that's actually the sweet spot, and that's where you can get the excitement, because you want other people to see, oh, you know, I had that same problem. And it seemed like, you know, working with AMD, working, you know, with the ecosystem, the OEMs, they, you know, my competitors or a similar company, they're able to solve a problem. And, you know, that's one of our kind of taglines, is like solving the world's most important challenges.
Once you've got that story and
Yeah.
you've got someone on stage and they've got the story and it sounds great, how then do you get that marketing message out there to the masses?
Through channel partners, obviously, really important. You know, I'm always saying to, you know, the channel team, to my team that manage the OEMs, like, bring us stories, bring us more. So there's a whole team that just works on customer stories that sits sort of centrally in our organisation. And it being EMEA, you know, a lead in EMEA, it's working with, you know, the regional marketeers, it's working, you know, with counterparts in PR, of course, as well, so that not just getting hold of those stories, but then how do we go to market? How do we share them? And, you know, just doing a PDF, it doesn't, you know, it might be helpful in a meeting for a salesperson, but it is doing podcasts, it's doing vidcasts, it's kind of activating it and making sure that, you know, through paid advertorials, through like working with other publishers, that we can get that narrative out. It's so multi-pronged, and it involves so many different teams to make it a success.
Is it quite challenging doing different regions? Obviously, EMEA is a region, but, you know, whether it's through Europe or Middle East, you know, obviously the UK, different markets, different cultures. Is it difficult getting that sort of message across that region?
You have to think about the why of it all. Why would this particular case study resound with X market, X vertical? Of course, like, local language translation is really important. You know, we're always thinking, we've got this case study in the pipeline. Which are the markets that we're going to want to activate this in? Thinking ahead to make sure that if it's, you know, a French customer, we need to be making sure that we've got the right assets in French for launch as well. So you have to think, you know, not just about a launch of something or the issue of something, it's broadening that and thinking how as well, and pre-planning lots of months out.
The chip market feels like it's dominated by a two-horse race. Intel, AMD. What's your take on that?
I mean, you know, competition is great. You know, I think from the top down, we're always, you know, we're always aligned that, I mean, it's not a two-horse race. There's lots of opportunities, but by having competition, it makes people innovate better and faster. We're lucky that at the moment we have some great leading edge technologies across all of the product sets. And we think our products speak for themselves in terms of that. And yeah, you know, going forward, it's always good to, you know, to see what other technologies are being developed, not just kind of in our sphere, but, you know, wider than that, you know, what softwares are being developed. And for AMD, you know, open ecosystem is also super important to us as well.
You mentioned there the technology and constant innovation. How do you actually stand out against the whole competition where they think, it's obvious that we've got to go to AMD. That's the product or whatever it's going to be using.
I'm going to turn a bit old-fashioned here and say it's about relationships,
Right.
actually. With all the marketing in the world, and all the having a leading product in the world, we're gaining market share, and that's really exciting. And we do have, leading products as well when it comes to our performance, core count, efficiency. But actually, when you talk to that end customer, or that channel partner, and you're trying to differentiate, it isn't just about giving a data sheet with the speeds and feeds on. It goes back to kind of solving problems that customers have got, whether it's a performance issue, efficiency, data centers now, particularly somewhere like this in London where space and power are at a premium. Perhaps you haven't got quite enough power to get into your office and your server room because you're limited by older infrastructure. Well, that's somewhere where, working with someone at AMD, if it's pre-sales or the FAE team or sales team, or even through our marketing, when we're sharing those benefits, we hope that hits the right people in the right way.
Let's talk about the buzzword in the market at the moment, Maz, which is AI.
Absolutely.
Everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
Are you using it in your marketing work?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's such... we had the age of the internet, right? And now we're in the age of AI. And there are so many positive benefits to it. If I'm trying to write a job spec, and I could have two options, right? In the olden days, I could look for one that already exists and
copy that, plagiarize that.
And then exactly, but actually, is that fit for purpose? No. With using an LLM, one that is, built in-house, it's already been trained on, the way that an AMD job spec is going to be. You're able to take that, using the right prompts. I think learning as individuals how to prompt LLMs is going to be absolutely vital in anyone's job role. An incorrect prompt will give you a subpar output. But learning how to customize to give the right prompts can give you some really high quality outputs. And just recently, I was working on a job spec, and I had it wrapped up in 5 minutes, and that would be hours and having to send it for approval and get additional feedback. But actually, what it had gathered already was of such a high quality. I just needed to customize a few elements that were really specific for the role I was hiring for. And then it's ready to go. If you wake up in the morning with writer's block and you're trying to write an excellent pitch proposal, and you can't quite get there, we're humans at the end of the day. We're getting pulled in different directions, the phone's ringing, your emails are pinging. It's actually quite hard sometimes to be in a creative role. And actually, sometimes being able to access content that gets you started, again, with the right prompts, it can save so much time. And, things like PowerPoint creation and data analysis as well. A lot of my job is tracking ROI and making sure the data that we're getting from our campaign investments is actually generating revenue for us. It's not just about brand awareness. It's really about how can I prove that the investment I'm making here is driving, AMD business on the other end. But when you're doing a full funnel marketing strategy, your data points are coming in from so many places, and they're not always uniform. And to manually, go through an accounts list, which might have a customer name spelt one way here and there's a space in it there, oh no, that we've used an acronym, that can be an absolute nightmare. It's hours and hours of work. But actually using an LLM can simplify that data in like seconds. We're not even talking minutes. It can be seconds. And then again, your starting point is so much further along than if you'd had to go through all that data validation and cleaning up the data. Is not to say that isn't still important to cross-check your data and make sure your prompt was correct to get out what you need. But a great example is that I managed to do an analysis of all of our accounts-based marketing clicks and leads to then work out from that, out of our target customer list, who we think has got the highest intent to purchase and across what product sets in the enterprise part of the business.
People talk about getting ROI from marketing all the time. They say, I've got to get an ROI from marketing. They have to demonstrate that leads are coming through from the funnel, et cetera, et cetera. It's very difficult to do that.
Yeah.
How you mentioned there about doing some analysis and proving where it's come from. How does one actually go about doing that? How does one prove that this marketing campaign actually caused this effect and it actually came into a potential order?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of ways to think about it. You can go on the really granular. We spoke to this lead, we've put them into our CRM system, track it through, what were the interactions, both from a marketing and a sales standpoint, and is there an opportunity or business tagged at the end of it? That's a very simplistic way to think about it, because you're making that assumption that that person that you've had the physical touch point with, or they've, it might be a round table, it could be a trade show, it could be a sales meeting, it could also be, white paper downloads and things like that. So you've got a massive, broad, quality conversation to have. And then also, if you're looking at a large enterprise customer, what are the chances that one person is going to give you the business? No, we know there's going to be multiple touch points and multiple people along the way. So whilst I still think it's very important to think about the individual and to keep those relationships going, you should also look on an accounts-based basis. And so that's why I ran that kind of campaign, was to then go, we know who are giving us leads, but we also want to know who's interacting with our content through ABM on an accounts level, and then tracking that back and going, has that account grown in the last 12 months, 24 months, or even down to 6 months? Because sometimes you might hit a customer at the exact right time when they're ready to do business. So looking at it on a very zoomed in, but then also zooming out. And what you might find, and we've experienced, is that we're seeing someone with really high intent that's popped up, but the business hasn't quite happened yet. And so we're then able to say to our colleagues in sales, look at this account. Are you talking to them? Oh, okay. Well, I know they've done business with us, maybe with client, but they're consuming a lot of server content right now. So if you haven't already approached them, now might be a good time. And here are the leads that have dropped as a reminder against that account to follow up with.
Maz, does what you say actually happen there, where you'd say to a client or one of your sales team, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened? Because most people I see when I hear in marketing, they're like, give you leads, get on with it. So, put this campaign out and the leads are full, and they're literally giving it to sales to follow up. But you've described there almost data, intelligence, almost an intent to buy, and a bit of information for the salespeople. So does that actually happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's where we're working. That's what we're always working towards.
Wow.
I think our jobs wouldn't exist if there weren't sales taking place. So throughout my career, working super closely with sales has always been really important. And getting that feedback, right? Because we're asked in marketing, what business did you drive? But unless I'm able to have that touch point with sales and get their feedback, I'm never going to be able to quite connect those dots unless you're lucky enough to have had a customer journey that was leads to opportunity, and tracked in the system. It has to be a two-pronged kind of approach. Sales and marketing have to work side by side. And it's about lead quality as well, right? The leads can come in all shapes and sizes, and we need that feedback on the quality to come back from our sales team as well, to make sure we're meeting the standard that they need as well.
How do you think AI is going to shape enterprise marketing? And you've almost given me a bit of information about that, because it could be an enterprise customer, 7 touch points or 7 decision makers. They've got a white paper, they've been to a round table, they've come to an event, they've been to a roadshow, they've bought before. All those different things have happened. How do you even work out where that marketing actually worked, or if AI is helping? What's your thought process on that when it's an enterprise customer? It's a big customer. It's not just one decision maker.
No, exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
You've got boards of decision makers, right? So the ABM element of that comes in, because you're able to then track who it is within, on those sales decision makers that are on that board that are helping make that decision. AI, I was just talking to a colleague today about what he was excited about in AI. And it was about those initial steps when you're post lead collection, but pre-handing it over to sales.
Yeah.
So that first email that needs to go out, does that need to come from an account manager or a pre-sales person? Or if we've got the right data sets, if we've used the right models, actually, are we able to have that first email be sent by AI on behalf of that sales rep, and with content that we know is going to resound well? So rather than them having to construct that email and trying to guess, okay, this is, a purchaser in this vertical, in this role within the company, what do I think is the best, initial email out? Of course, there's templates, but we know that just a cookie cutter is never going to work for everyone. And I think where AI is going to be able to help us is taking some of that, that initial effort away, maybe nurturing a little bit before in that gap between getting the lead and it being passed on to a salesperson, because the models can be trained to learn, and they will be able to then essentially take the experience that they've had from reaching out, knowing that, okay, this is an FSI, ITTM in the company this size. So we know that this kind of communication as an initial reach out is going to work better than this one. So the ability, but you need people to train the models as well. Models are never going to be perfect right out of the box. You need people to make sure the data they're feeding them is as good as possible. So I really see AI as a way to taking away some of those menial initial tasks and warming the customers up for the face-to-face, because there's never going to be a replacement for a human-to-human relationship, right? But there are some points along the way, some touch points that could be aided by effective use of AI.
From your perspective, Maz, can you give me an example of a type of marketing campaign that actually works in the channel, or maybe it's worked for you,
Oh, there's so many, because I think back to even before I joined AMD, I'd admired the marketing for a long time. That to the point that when I was being interviewed, I was talking about a campaign to my interviewer that really caught my attention at an event, and they went, "Oh, that was my campaign."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Oh, wow, I didn't know that." I'm not trying to suck up. Actually, great. So an early one from the server side of things was 2017, and it was the Naples launch of Epic. And we were sitting, watching the keynote in the office, and then the doorbell went at the office, and there was a stack of pizzas that was delivered to us from AMD with the Epic logo on the box and some other, bits and pieces. And that was a campaign that AMD ran for all channel partners at that time for that launch. So you've got to think about the orchestration of that, because obviously it wasn't a well-known brand that was going out. These were proper Italian, hand-cooked pizzas that were being delivered to us. That level of detail, people remembered that, and it was a fairly low-cost activation, but it was different.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a lunch and learn where you buy in some cupcakes. It was just something that was a little bit different, and that really stuck when I was working at a channel partner with that team. And it was a really great, hey, AMD is here. We're here to compete. You should be paying attention to us. And it did affect the way people thought about the product. And then fast forwarding to my tenure at AMD, we've got a little bit of fun next to us. So I was talking to one of my colleagues in PR, who's a really creative person, and they kind of said, have you ever thought about maybe creating a chip, like an AMD chip? I think someone else maybe did it a while ago, but I think there's more that could be done. So I was like, I'm in, right, let's do this together. And the the idea was that we would do a small, so 100 kind of pieces, activation. So 50 would go to the PR team. They would work with influencers and their PR contacts to send these sets to, but along with a narrative about chiplet architecture. And there was a video that accompanied it with one of our product marketers building the set and talking about why chiplet architecture is the way to go. And on the other side, we had these 50 sets that were going to go to, key channel partners that were really engaged, that did this kind of activity, videos, podcasting, blogs, and then some select end customers. And as we were doing this project, it takes time to get through all the hurdles of, rolling out lots of different revisions of the sets. But you never know how something's going to be received, right? Particularly when it's a slightly left field activity. And, we launched it. And, we were getting some good traction. I was starting to see on my social feeds, the chips pop up and have, people talking about them. The customers that received them were like, oh my gosh, these are amazing. Can I have more sets? And we were really happy. And then overnight, they appeared on a big international blog, and it just went wild. We had emails from our CVP's offices. How can I get my hands on a set? We've got lots of customer experience centers across the globe, and everyone was contacting us about them. And it just went wild. I had my phone, my Teams, my emails were pinging from different colleagues across the company, wanting it for themselves, wanting it for their customers. And we just didn't quite appreciate that people felt the same way as we did, and loved them. And, we are now on they were Genoa-based systems, so our 9004 series. Since then, we've had Turin launch, so the 5th generation of Epic. And so what we have here is the 5th generation. And
Which
customers still message me being like, can I have one for a giveaway? Can I have 5? Because someone else got one in the office and now other 5 people want it. So, it's great to have that demand, and actually we can open a conversation off the back of it, so something that just sparks someone's creativity or something that sticks in their mind can open that conversation, open up the relationship as well.
Absolutely.
Wherever it is, whether it is with a journalist or whether it is with a customer, the next time you go into the office and you walk in with your set, people go, oh my God, okay, what do I have to do to get this? I love when something like that kind of is an idea in someone's mind actually then, comes to fruition. And as a marketeer, seeing your fingerprint on something that actually is well received is really lovely to have as well.
Do you think there is a balance needed, Maz, in terms of AI is great and it saves loads of time, etc., but it's not going to replace marketing? I can't see it replacing marketing. Do you see there's a balance between the sort of the personal touch and the creativity of someone, a human AI, because we can't sort of tip over and have just robots thinking of these ideas all the time, can we? So what's your view on the sort of personalisation of what you've created there for an individual, almost with the automation of AI?
Yeah, I mean, roles are going to evolve, but then nowadays, it's very rare for someone to, finish their studies and then go into a job and be doing that same role 40 years later. I think as technology is always going to advance, roles are going to advance, and maybe the jobs don't look identical to what they were, 10 years before. But, in my career, I'm not doing the same thing I was doing when I started my career. So I think it's about a balance and looking for opportunity. 10 years ago, I was going to events and sitting down, and the topic was, is AI going to steal all of our jobs? So that was 10 years ago now. I think it's about embracing technology and learning how to use it to best help you advance in your role.
From your perspective, Maz, where do you think people, I'm not saying get it wrong, but you see marketing campaigns not work so well in the market, either from a vendor perspective or partner perspective?
Yeah, so, I always put myself in both shoes, right? So thinking, what am I trying to achieve as, marketing Maz at AMD? And then, what is it that if I was at a channel partner, or if I was at a OEM, what are my objectives? What am I trying to receive? And I think perhaps where vendors might get it wrong is thinking that it's a one size fits all model. The industry is highly competitive and everyone is looking for their niche. And I think if we just go out with a campaign in the box and just say, here's some MDF, here's a campaign in a box, go activate it. What is the benefit to us as AMD and what is the benefit to the customer? And fine, the end result might be that you might see there's a few more landing pages, on the channel partner's website. And it's not to say that's not a great thing to have, but actually how are we helping that channel partner grow their business with this asset? And so what I love is I've always advocated for saying to our partners, what is going to help you go big? What is your go big idea? Because you know your business better than I know your business. We've been working together for, X amount of years now. What can I do to help you? How can we best invest in your marketing? Because they're called marketing development funds, right? So it should be developing people's marketing for both us and then for the channel partner. So actually saying to partners, okay, given a carte blanche, it's still got to be marketing activity, but what is it that would help you move the dial? I think getting that feedback coming back into us means that there's more creative campaigns that happen. And actually, we then notice that within AMD, if we've got a channel partner that's doing something a bit different, they get noticed. But in AMD, that channel partner gets recognized as well. Because, people go, oh, what are they doing over there? That's interesting. Maybe it's a different kind of event. Maybe it's, a product release that they're doing a little bit differently. They're, first to market with, new servers or new systems that are available on POC before any other partner that's able to do it. They've chosen to invest in the technology, but through, the marketing development funds, we're able to enable them to reach out more people and to get people onto those systems and trying before they buy.
How do you analyse the success of those ideas? Because, for example, when you were sort of talking, I was thinking, if I was a partner, I could say, oh, can you just go and pay for the bar bill at our event or whatever it is? Or I've got this really innovative Lego idea and I want to do this. Are you getting thrown ideas up from partners all the time to use for these development funds?
I mean, the team are constantly. And I think, but there is a line to be drawn between what's entertainment, and what is a sales-led activity, and then what's a marketing-led activity. And I think the two go side by side. And so if it is, can you pick up the bar bill? Well, what's the event? Who's going to be there? What opportunities are there before, during and after the event to understand either the customer's needs or, how we can talk to them about our technologies. So I think it's a much broader view, and asking the why all the time. So why do you want AMD to be, your partner for this activity?
Yeah.
And there's always an answer, there is always the want to expand. But I just think that we, as an organisation, there has to be, yes, we have an objective to promote, our latest technologies. But if we listen to our partners, we can then take that feedback on the assets that are needed back into the organisation to go, this worked really well, with our partners here in EMEA. How can we get more of it,
Yeah.
And I think for us, again, I'm doing a full circle back to the storytelling. That's really important as well.
I saw recently that you were nominated for the CRN Women's and Diversity Awards. Honestly, how important are those awards to you? Is it great recognition or is it a PR moment? What do you feel about them?
I mean, I feel really honoured, I think CRN, it's a brand that is known all over the world. So any nomination, wherever it comes from, there are so many talented women, men, everyone, in the workplace. And to have my name picked out as a nominee, I think it's a huge honour. There's some really impressive women in my category and on the wider list. So I think it's great to feel like something you've done has been recognised by anyone. And, you know, to make it to the finals, I feel hugely honoured, actually. It does make a difference. It does make me feel... to feel seen.
Recognised.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And when is the awards?
It's not long away.
Yeah, October, is it?
I think something like that. Yeah, October time frame.
Yeah,
So
good luck.
Watch
Good
this
luck.
space.
Watch this space, people. Watch this space. Let's talk about the future, Maz. With the rising demand for sort of power, speed, where's the market heading? You know, what's next for AMD?
So I know that, you know, through our business, as well as performance being really important, the power efficiency of our products, whether it's, you know, using your laptops and having a better battery life, or whether it is in your data center where, you know, space can be at a premium. But actually, you know, when you're thinking of these large data centers, you know, server by server by server, you think of all the technologies that sit inside that server. If all of them are operating with the best efficiency, there is a TCO conversation to have around that as well. It might not be the be all and end all. It depends on the deployment, but it's certainly an important, you know, conversation that we have at AMD, and even through to marketing. You know, like I've always tried to be thoughtful about the materials that we use in our literature. You know, we don't really do paper data sheets, because you can use a QR code. You know, people can email themselves that data sheet, because let's face it, if you pick up a data sheet, it's probably going to go scrunch in the bottom of your bag. Do people actually view that? I mean, I've not been asked for a data sheet for about 5 years now. Even, you know, the materials that we use to kind of put our merchandise on, are they sustainable? You know, I will never want to create a piece of merchandise that is like a single use. I want something to have longevity. I might spend a bit more money to use a recyclable material, or to produce an asset that, you know, people are going to carry around with them for longer. I consider that not just an investment into the item, but also an investment into the planet, which probably sounds really, you know, I don't know, a bit sad, but I think that's really important. And, you know, I have a daughter, she's 10 years old, and, you know, they're being brought up to question single-use plastics and other kind of, you know, they're growing up in a world where we've got global warming, and I think that we're seeing climate change now far more real than we've ever done in the past. And if you can work for a company that's, you know, has challenges and is making strides in the right direction, but I'm also implementing it into my job and my remit, I think if everyone does their bit, it's moving things in the right direction.
What's next for you and the AMD team? Is there any innovations that the Channel Chat listeners should be aware of?
Oh, so advancing AI is our kind of our regular announcement of our latest products, and it has now just become, I mean, it's such an exciting event that takes place. You know, I've seen this evolve from just being, you know, like one product driven launch to being a full, you know, AI portfolio announcement. Also gone from, you know, being held in a small venue with select, you know, press to loads of end customers vying to be there, flying in to take part and just to be the first to hear about our announcements. Helios is going to be an amazing innovation. As Lisa shared, you know, it's taking all of our technologies, CPU, GPU, networking, and also our ROCm software. So it's really taking everything that AMD is great about and then bringing it a solution to customers. People are already talking about it, right? It was the day it was announced, people were, you know, asking us for more information for data sheets. So I think, you know, the only way is up. It's AMD is such a positive environment to work in. We all get really excited about, you know, what we're doing. And I think it's kind of, you know, everyone feeds off everyone else's energy. And that excitement isn't just about that launch. It's about working at AMD and what each one of us is contributing to the company and where the company is going.
My last question,
Yeah.
and I don't want you to sit on the fence, and I don't want you to say AMD is the best company. I want you to give me a company that you think is the one to watch in 2025. As we've moved through H2, it could be a vendor, it could be another partner, it could be an MSP, it could be a distributor, any company. What company do you think is the one that you think they're going to do good things at the back end of 2025?
Choose one. I haven't even touched on cloud. I haven't even, I've talked about so much on-prem, but I've not even talked about like the possibilities that cloud offers. And like local hosters as well throughout EMEA, that's something that's really, really special. So it's so hard to say a who, it has to be a what. And I think, AI, how that is going to be, leveraged in my day-to-day life, in my daughter's day-to-day life, in my dad's day-to-day life, how, AI can be used for good, I'm really excited about. And just, people's accessibility to technology. Technology can help people on a day-to-day basis. I have a friend who is partially sighted, and she's got partial hearing as well. And, as technology advances to help her, it's removing barriers for her on a day-to-day basis. And, that makes a real difference in people's lives. It helps them feel more independent. It helps them access things. And, whether you've got a device that is, utilizing AI on the device, or whether it's, in the cloud, the opportunity is there. And I think I want people just to take away and to investigate for them, like how AI can help them in their lives. My personal thing was, it was the first time I used an LLM. And I was like, where do I even start? Like, what do I even ask this? And then my husband said to me, ask it a question that you don't know the answer to, but you really need some help with. And immediately something sprung to mind, which is my mother was from the Czech Republic, and she passed away, and I was aware that through her passport as a child, I sort of had dual nationality, but I wasn't sure whether I was still entitled to have a dual nationality. And I went on the embassy website, and I wasn't able to get that information, considering my mother had passed away, whether they would have documentation for her at the embassy, where I would even start. So the prompt was along the lines of, I'd like to obtain Czech dual nationality, but my mother has died. What steps do I need to do to start the process? And what it came out with was essentially a step-by-step guide. Like, this is like who you need to contact at the embassy. These are the documents that you're going to need to bring with you. These are the documents that are going to be created. And it was right. From the second I reached out, it followed that. And I couldn't find that information through just searching for it online. It had obviously used its large language models to pull in that data from multiple different places, analyze it, and actually give me a really personalized piece of feedback. And the result is that I have dual nationality, which is something that's really important to me, because I was brought up to be really, really proud of my British and my Czech nationality, and I can then pass that on to my daughter as well.
Maz, you did sit on the fence, but it was a great answer, so we'll leave it there. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much.